Hello everyone, and thanks for attending. The process of investigating wet packs can be performed by developing and following a systematic plan. We will review the issues that sterile processing departments face with wet packs, including troubleshooting and problem-solving these occurrences. Participants must complete the entire webinar to receive 0.5 contact hours. Partial credit will not be given. STERIS Corporation is an approved provider of continuing nursing education by the California Board of Registered Nurses and a partner with ISHM and CBSPD. Additional information related to the accreditation process is on the screen for your review. Let's take a look at the learning objectives that we will be covering within this webinar. We will review the causes of wet packs in steam sterilization along with the suggested documentation to assist in a moisture assessment. Let's begin by asking the question, why are wet packs a problem? Wet packs create a pathway for the migration of microorganisms from the outside to the inside of the package. With that being said, wet packs should be considered contaminated. Every sterile processing department must create a plan to investigate wet pack occurrences. Wet packs involve many players and factors, including steam quality, sterilizer loads, and the configuration of sets in loads. Since these issues do occur, staff members must complete the necessary documentation with process audits involving the sterile processing department as well as other departments, including the operating room. A simple format such as a wet pack log can be helpful. When detailed logs of wet pack problems are kept, the historical data pertaining to wet packs could provide valuable information for the current issue. This is an example of a wet pack log. Data included within this log are the sterilizer number, sterilization cycle, date, time of day, wet items, location in loads, exposure time and temperature, dry time, and any comments. Upon review of the log, you may start to see a pattern occurring with certain times of the day, specialty instruments, staff members, and instruments from other departments. Tracking wet pack occurrences and discovering patterns can be valuable in solving moisture assessment problems. It is important to review one area at a time to complete a thorough investigation using a process of elimination. The next question that we can ask is, what is happening in the sterilizer during the sterilization process? There are three major events that occur during the sterilization process. The first event is heat transfer. Heat transfer occurs when the energy is exchanged between the steam and the item being sterilized. The second event is condensation. Condensation occurs when the steam becomes water as the heat is transferred to the items being sterilized. The third and final event is revaporization. The revaporization process occurs when the condensation that has formed is evaporated and dried. This picture describes heat transfer and represents energy and water that has become steam, thus entering the chamber. The tray on the left has instruments piled in one corner of the tray. The tray of instruments on the right are evenly distributed. This arrangement is key to better steam contact to all surfaces with a higher probability of drying. This picture represents the condensation process with steam contacting the surfaces of the instruments. During the sterilization process, steam becomes water or condensation when coming in contact with a cooler surface. There is likely to be more water remaining in the tray on the left since these instruments are piled on top of one another, overwhelming the area with condensate that could be difficult to dry. This example represents the revaporization process. The water becomes steam, and the steam is then removed from the chamber. Note the water remaining in the tray on the left as labeled with the letters W. With a moisture assessment, we must examine the individual packs. External moisture on packs is noticed immediately when they are removed from the sterilizer. Internal moisture will not be noticed until the packs are opened for use unless wicking occurs through the wrap. When troubleshooting external moisture, we must first locate where the moisture is. If the water droplets or moisture on the exterior pack is associated with coming from a particular location, it is considered localized moisture. Poor steam quality can be the issue if moisture occurs near the steam entry into the chamber. If the location of the moisture is near the drain port, this is a failure of the check valve. Dispersed moisture will come from the shelves above the pack. This may vary from 1 drop to multiple drops depending on loading, wrapping material, or length of dry time. Dispersed moisture is distributed over the entire load by feeling the dampness of cloth wrappers or uniform beads of water on peel pouches or non-absorbent wrappers. This can be related to a sterilizer malfunction or technique problem. If the steam quantity is adequate and the vacuum rate and level are good, the next step would be to evaluate the drying phase. The drying phase could be malfunctioning and it may not be long enough for the size or density of the load. Follow AAMI recommended practices and the sterilizer manufacturer's recommendations regarding the weight of packs. Limit set size and density to allow ample room for sterilant penetration to the items during sterilization and for the removal of moisture during drying. Remember to properly load the sterilizer. In pack preparation, staff members must consider the metal mass in sets. When large concentrations of metal mass are localized in a small area, this produces a quantity of water relative to its size and density, creating too much moisture to dry properly. Metal mass should be dispersed through the trays. Larger trays may be necessary or the need to divide larger sets into 2 trays. Do not check the interior of the sets until they have been cooled. If not cooled properly, the instrument sets will feel moist. When the sets have cooled and the towels feel wet or moist, this is an indication of a wet pack problem. Another area of concern includes overloaded instrument sets creating condensate which cannot be revaporized. Positioning the instruments within the sets along with positioning the items and sets on the sterilizer cart may also be a concern. When a wet pack has been identified, staff members need to document the location of the moisture along with the location of the sets on the sterilizer cart. The staff members who prepared the set and reviewed the load card to determine how the sterilizer cart was loaded. When investigating textile wet packs, always check when cooled. When checking the linens while they are warm, first open them up, shake them out, and then feel for moisture. While still folded, hot or warm towels will feel damp. An accurate test is to shake the towels to assist in the cooling process of the textiles. Let's take a look at the guidelines for the preparation of instruments. Basin sets and textile packs. Review practices to identify areas for improvement and the causes of wet packs. Use standard surgical instrument trays with wire mesh bottoms to promote drainage. Choose a tray that is large enough to distribute metal mass evenly. Cake pan type trays or flat trays should not be used unless they have adequate drainage holes. When using tray liners, confirm the approval for appropriate sterilization methods. First, line instrument trays with an absorbent towel or disposable equivalent before arranging the instruments in the pan. Moisture formed during sterilization readily dries from absorbent materials rather than from droplets or pools on solid metal surfaces. Do not use water-repellent textiles, non-woven disposable wraps, or thick absorbent textiles to line the trays. Thick absorbent tray liners may pool or trap moisture, making it difficult to dry the set. Use foam products intended for use in instrument trays with caution as they can hold condensation. Consult the container manufacturer. When using tray liners with rigid sterilization container systems, disposable, non-woven wraps should not be used to line trays due to the water-repellent characteristics contributing to wet pack problems. Additional water from wet instruments presents a greater challenge to the revaporization process or how the instruments are dried. Ensure that the instruments are prepared properly for final sterilization. Water can be trapped when the instruments are not evenly distributed and completely disassembled. Do not pile instruments on top of each other and separate the lighter instruments from the heavier ones. The top picture demonstrates the heavy chisels being placed into the absorbent pouch with all heavy handles facing one way. The picture on the left indicates that the metal mass is more evenly distributed, showing the proper way to organize, position, and fold heavy-handled instruments for sterilization. The instrument cloth pouches should be folded into thirds, not rolled. When rolled, the metal mass is not evenly distributed. This is an example of the improper use of pill pouches inside instrument trays to contain groups of instruments. Pill pouches should not be used inside instrument sets or wrapped containers. Approved products are available on the market for organizing instruments within sets and containers. When preparing instrument sets, follow the AAMI recommended guidelines for the instrument set weight ranging from 16 to 17 pounds for each set, which is the weight limit used for testing by sterilizer manufacturers. AAMI states that the weight limit should not exceed 25 pounds. To ensure sterility, follow the sterilizer manufacturer's guidelines. The weight of the sets can have an impact on staff members to safely and ergonomically lift the instrument trays. When heavy instruments such as weighted speculums or mallets are included in trays, it is recommended to wrap these items in an absorbent towel prior to placing them into the tray. If the instrument set is too heavy, this could be the cause of a wet pack issue. Double pouching instruments with an oversized inner pouch can cause challenges with air removal, sterilant contact, and drying. When an item is double packed, two sequentially sized pouches should be used. The sealed inner pouch should fit inside the outer pouch without folding. The pouches should be positioned so that the plastic faces plastic and paper faces paper. To limit condensation from the solid metal surfaces, a basin set should not exceed 7 pounds. All nested utensils should be separated or wicked using absorbent material to separate surfaces for steam contact and evacuation for drying. When using towels to separate large solution basins, open the towel and pie crust it well into the bottom basin before applying a basin on top. The moisture that is formed between basins will cling to the intersurface of the bottom pan, allowing the towel to absorb the moisture for more efficient drying. If the top basin is the same size or slightly smaller in diameter than the bottom basin, use a folded absorbent surgical towel for elevation to avoid a close fit that could trap moisture between the basins. Staff members who assemble, wrap, and load basin sets for sterilization should follow the same guidelines to facilitate proper loading for sterilization with all items tilting in a position for drainage. Consideration should be taken when positioning utensils that have been curled or turned rims, for example, emesis basins within a set. Stand basins on edge, since pooling of water can occur around the rim, creating a source for wet pack issues. Position hollow surgical light handles inverted with the handle end down in the basin when the set is tilted on edge to facilitate drainage for sterilization. Small items such as medicine glasses and cups should be eliminated from the basin set if they cannot be secured in a drainage position, since they often reposition and collect condensation. It is best to place these items in a peel pouch and sterilize them separately. An external landmark can signal the loader for proper positioning in the sterilizer. For example, the taped side would indicate the standing edge. Before applying the wrapper, consider the curled rim on the large solution basins, since water can pool in the rim when tilted for sterilization. The rim should be positioned on the wrapper so the absorbent towel used to whip the basins will wrap around the edge, absorbing the condensation to facilitate the drying process. When preparing linen packs, pack density relates to how the textile contents of a pack are arranged and how tightly they are wrapped. Linen pack preparation must be maintained within specific parameters during sterilization for proper air removal, steam penetration, and steam evacuation. Some textiles used for wrapping are water repellent rather than water absorbent. Consult the textile manufacturer for preparation and sterilization instructions. Textiles made of water repellent material may need to be wrapped in an absorbent towel prior to wrapping in non-woven wrap or other non-absorbent wrappers. Woven textiles have been more forgiving of improper preparation techniques. Porous textiles such as cotton and linen absorb the excess moisture from overloaded sets and trays, which may dry more easily. Always follow the manufacturer's guidelines. When choosing wrappers, select those designed and tested for use in steam sterilization. When using wrappers for dual purposes, you may end up with excess layers or folds of wrap that could prohibit sterilization or trap moisture. This is an example of a tray being wrapped with a wrapper that is too large for the set, causing the excessive layers during wrapping, resulting in unnecessary steam penetration and drying challenges. Wrappers should not be used for draping since they are not impervious. Acceptable absorbent shelf liners include non-linting materials. Bath blankets and towels are not acceptable. An absorbent shelf liner can be used and is helpful in drying a load when disposable wraps are used. Shelf liners will absorb moisture that may drop onto the items below. Sterilization carts should not be lined with non-woven wrap. This type of wrap is water repellent rather than absorbent and may cause beading or pooling of water. It is preferred to sterilize textiles separate from hard goods. However, if this is not possible, place textiles on the top shelf and hard goods below to avoid condensation from running off, which could moisten the items below. Instrument trays should be placed flat on the shelf to maintain instrument distribution and to facilitate drainage. Basin sets should be placed on their edge, tilted for drainage. Containers must be placed flat on the sterilizer cart shelves. It is acceptable to place rigid containers over other rigid containers. Challenge packs should be placed flat on the bottom shelf over the drains. Do not allow items to touch the chamber walls or they could contact condensation. Use sterilizer carts whenever possible, allowing items to remain on the carts until they are cool to touch. Ideally, each sterilizer would have 3 carts. 1 cart for cooling, 1 in the sterilizer, and 1 that is being prepared for sterilization. Examine how each item is positioned for sterilization and avoid overloading. The picture on the left is an example of an improperly loaded sterilization cart, while the picture on the right represents a properly loaded cart. Instrument sets must always be placed flat on sterilizer carts. This is an example of properly loaded basin sets with the landmarks on the top. For more efficient air removal, steam penetration, and evacuation for drying, position the textile pack so that the layers within are perpendicular to the shelf. The unwrapped blue towels in the center demonstrate the correct orientation of the pack. If paper and plastic peel pouches are not positioned properly on sterilization carts, water can accumulate on the outside of the packages. Placing the package flat with the plastic side down may cause moisture to remain inside. Placing the package flat with the plastic side up may cause water to stand on top of the plastic. Use a basket or rack to position paper and plastic peel pouches on their edge. Placing the package flat with the plastic side down may cause moisture to remain inside. Changes in the device manufacturer's recommendations on the selection of sterilization parameters have added new challenges to sterile processing departments. Based on the mode of steam sterilization used, steam sterilizer manufacturers provide recommendations for minimum sterilization parameters and the types of items being sterilized. Medical device manufacturers have revalidated their complex medical devices and complex tray configurations, establishing new recommendations. While the steam sterilizer manufacturer can make minimum parameter recommendations based on their testing, the the device manufacturer has the final word on sterilization parameters based on the validation testing of that device. To prevent condensation from occurring, avoid placing hot items on cold surfaces, in boxes, and in bins. Hot items should not be stacked on top of each other. Warm packages should not be placed in dust covers since condensation will be trapped and remain until opened and possibly damaging the items within. It is important to maintain the cleanliness of the sterilizers. Considerations include checking and cleaning the drain screen in the sterilizer chamber at least daily, but preferably every shift. An obstructed screen can prohibit proper air removal and steam removal at the end of the cycle. Radiant heat from clean chamber walls will provide more efficient drying. Wet packs occur more frequently with changes in the sterilization process and environment. In an attempt to prevent the occurrence of wet packs, routine audits of sterilization equipment, sterilization processes, and environmental conditions should be conducted. A departmental checklist should be part of the equipment audit. Good quality steam consisting of 97% saturated steam with no more than 3% liquid content is acceptable. The steam supply should be delivered and regulated at proper dynamic steam pressure from the steam generator to each sterilizer. The plumbing lines should be located directly from the steam generator, if possible. The plumbing line should also be properly trapped to prevent carryover of condensation into the line with the flowing steam into the sterilizer chamber. The steam line should be covered with insulation to maintain the steam temperature. When a new sterilizer is installed and a wet pack problem occurs, other areas need to be considered. Do not assume that it is a problem with the sterilizer. A question can be asked: are there any other pieces of equipment or areas requiring steam from the same steam source when the sterilizer is in the operation? For example, the washer decontaminator, cart washer, kitchen equipment, and dishwashers. Process audits can be valuable with the investigation of wet packs. Review policies and procedures with staff members along with education and training, which will validate staff competencies. Do not use disposable towels and packs. Fabric softeners and ironing towels can diminish absorbency of cotton textiles. Changes in wrapping materials and the introduction of rigid sterilization container systems can result in wet packs. Porous textile wrappers permit revaporization of moisture easily at the end of the sterilization process compared to a non-woven disposable wrap or rigid sterilization container. Staff members should be held accountable for following the correct procedures in preparation, packaging, and loading of the sterilizers. When the steam generator or changes in plumbing have occurred for normal seasonal maintenance, steam can be affected. Water conditions and boiler treatments are compatible with the sterilization process, even though the mixtures might vary depending on the season. Environmental audits should take place during a new construction or renovation project. Note any maintenance or remodeling that was performed on the steam generator and distribution system, as this could affect the sterilization and drying process. Environmental factors such as temperature and relative humidity in the preparation, sterilization, and cool-down areas should be constant and can change with the seasons. The work area temperature should be maintained between 68 to 73 degrees Fahrenheit with a relative humidity between 30 and 60%. In summary, we know that the source of a wet pack issue is extremely difficult to solve. A detailed wet pack log will aid in the investigation of the problem. Staff members who are involved with wet pack preparation and sterilization should be properly trained and follow the facility's policies and procedures. A collaborative team approach can facilitate the process when conducting a moisture assessment. For additional information on moisture assessment, check out these credential programs at www.university.steris.com. Clinical self-study guide titled Steam Sterilization and the Role of Central Service in Infection Prevention, e-learning courseware on the Journey of a Surgical Instrument, and published papers titled Instrument Packaging, the Basics for Sterile Processing Professionals, and Cracking the Steam Sterilizer Door, Dispelling the Myth.